everybody. We've been working a lot with the AWS team for the last months, so we are preparing a lot of surprise this month, especially many activities with AWS teams this month in February. So start with this online conference. Today we'll talk a little bit about AWS and Sigfox integration. We'll give you a live demo. So thank you again, Jean, for being with us today. So a couple of words about you. Jean Malha is the solution architect. AWS is based in South France in Toulouse. He will give a presentation to you today, which will last 30 up to 35, maybe 4 minutes, we'll see. And afterwards, I have a couple of 10 minutes, 15 minutes to ask a question. Don't hesitate. Any questions you can ask to the question channel. We'll read them in. So as a reminder, for those of you an IoT project and you would like to be it either by Sigfox and AWS, we team up with AWS to give you the best conditions to build your business. So as part of the Sigfox startup program, you will receive a lot of support from us, from the AWS team. Indeed, you will receive up to 10 credit from AWS according to your status, development of your project, and the requirements of AWS. And you will receive 1 year of AWS business support. But I would like to advise to activate these perks wisely because it's activated. You will have 1 year term all your credits. So if it's not the right maybe right timing to activate this, and be sure that you match AWS and Sigfox requirements to get access to all these perks. But the session will be recorded. Afterwards, maybe you want to AWS activate a program or start a program from Sigfox. And last announcement from my side. So on the 26th of February, for the French companies, we'll organize a specific event at Staff in Paris with the CEO of Crop, which is a French-based company for weather base stations. They are based in Lille. So if you want to hear an interview from the CEO of Crop, learn more about what it is to be an entrepreneur, the difficulties, and its success story, feel free to join. We'll also add the during the. So thank you again, Jean, for being with us today. I will give you the mic. You can start whenever.
Okay. So, well, thank you everyone for joining us today. What I want to show you today is how to do an integration of the Sigfox connected objects into the AWS platform, so that you can build your application within the AWS platform in the most simple yet secure and scalable way. So let me start. So basically, if we start with the architecture, what we have on the Sigfox side is the ability for your objects to communicate to the Sigfox stations, and then to manage your objects and receive all of your messages within the Sigfox cloud. What you need to do after that is get your messages and treat them into your application. So more specifically, in this demonstration, what we're going to do is we're going to use a sended object here that's going to send messages to the Sigfox infrastructure, then get the messages into the Sigfox cloud, and we're going to create a callback into the AWS infrastructure. So more specifically, we're going to create a callback into an AWS service called Amazon IoT Core. And then within this service, we're going to reroute the messages to AWS IoT Analytics, which is going to enable us to create a pipeline for our objects where we can create activity, where we can decode the messages, then store them and query what we've stored into what we will call a data set. And we will then show the results of the querying of the data sets into our data visualization service, which is called Amazon QuickSight. So in terms of architecture, it's going to be pretty straightforward. So let me jump directly into the Sigfox backend. So here I'm connected to the Sigfox backend. So I'm connected as my user here. I have a device that's been allocated to me. This device is part of the group, and I have a device type that's here. And on this device type, I have the ability to create a callback. So if we go back basically to the little schema that we have here, we're going to be able to get all the messages here from all of our devices within our device type into a callback that's going to send to some other infrastructure. Here it's going to be AWS. So I want to create a new callback. As you can see, Sigfox has already created specific callbacks for different infrastructure platforms that you may be using. What we're going to use here is AWS IoT. So here, when I decide to create a callback for my device type, I'm going to be able to choose between a basic configuration method and a cross-account configuration method. We're going to use cross-account here. The difference would be if we use a basic configuration, we're going to put a static access and secret key, which we will create in AWS for a specific user. These will say static, whereas when we use cross-account, as you'll see, we're going to be able to use assumed roles, which means the credentials will be dynamic. So what it does here is it provides you with an external ID. So here the folks at Sigfox have done the job really well, because as you can see, you have directly a button that says launch stack. For those of you who are not familiar with the AWS console, when you click on it, it takes you to the actual AWS console. So I'm already logged into my account. That's why I already in the CloudFormation service when I click here launch stack. The CloudFormation is our infrastructure as code service. It helps you deploy infrastructure, which could be virtual machines, which could be any resources within any of our services. Here, what's interesting is it's going to deploy the role that Sigfox is going to be able to use to get into your AWS account. So the cross-account role for AWS IoT. You can see the code here. If I look at it in the designer, it's easy for me to read it in YAML, but if you like JSON, it's absolutely okay too. So we're going to create a role that allows for the Sigfox account to get into your account. And then once it gets the role, it is allowed to connect, to use the action IoT Connect on the resources, describe endpoints, and also to publish messages to specific topics that you specify when launching this stack. So let's do exactly that. We're going to come here, say we want to use cross-account configuration method. It sends us to AWS. It's important here to have a look at which region we're going to be using. So here I want to do all my demonstration in Ireland. So I stay here in Ireland. I'm going to use the templates that's provided to me. I'm going to hit next. I'm going to give it a name. Here it asks me for an account ID, which is my account ID. I'm going to use this. Sorry. It asks me for an external ID, and Sigfox has provided it here. So I can just copy here and paste it here, and it asks me for which region I want to allow the role that's going to be assumed by Sigfox to write messages into my IoT topics. I want to stay in the West one. It also asks me to specify which IoT topic I want to allow for Sigfox to publish in. I'm going to leave Sigfox here. So this is just the creation of the resource into AWS. So I create the stack. As this stack contains AIM resources, I am required to acknowledge that I create AIM resources. That's strictly standard. In here, I create my stack. So within my stack, I only have to get to my cross accounts role as soon as it's created, which is the case. I can get the AWS resource name for this specific role. It's going to be useful for Sigfox here to be able to do the assume role into my accounts. I'm going to configure so that they write to the correct endpoint. So I want them to write to Ireland, the West one, and I want to write to a topic. Here I'm going to keep Sigfox because I've only allowed them to write to Sigfox. I need to configure now the JSON body of the messages that will be sent by the Sigfox infrastructure onto the MQTT topic on the AWS side. So the syntax here is pretty straightforward. It's JSON syntax. You have all of the variables that are available here from your device. I'm going to just get in past here from a message format I've prepared earlier. So basically, you define the name of your attribute, and then with the accolades here, you can match to one of the attributes that are available. So once this is done, my callback is created, and I can send the messages to my AWS account. So let's go into IoT Core. I just want to move back here a bit, show you what we've done is receive the messages here and send them to IoT Core. Once the messages are sent to IoT Core, what we want to do is be able to route them to a specific pipeline of treatment within AWS. Here we're going to do everything within AWS IoT Analytics. So to do that, we go into AWS IoT Core, and we're going to create a rule. So we select here which topic we want to filter. So we want to get all the messages that come from the topic that we've created. Here it would be completely possible for us to create different callbacks for different topics, for different kinds of messages. We could filter here so that we can only send messages from the topic that are interesting to us. Here we want to have everything, and we're going to create an action from this rule. So actions are things that IoT Core will send the message to, which could be a key value database like DynamoDB. Here, what we want to do is do some analytics on our messages, so we're going to send it to IoT Analytics. We have the choice here either to create all of our resources by hand or to use an easy creation of our IoT Analytics resources. We're going to go through the easy creation, and it's going to create 5 things. So it's going to create a channel, which is what will receive the messages into IoT analytics, it's going to create a data store, which is what will store all of our messages. Once they've been treated, we're going to create a pipeline, which will be a set of activities, so enrichment, decoding, etc. And we're going to create a data set. The data set will be a specific query within our data store that we can use within another application. It's also going to create a role. Within AWS, you'll see that all resources have the necessity to have a role so that they can have rights to do things. So we've shown it with the role that we allow Sigfox to assume to get into AWS. It's exactly the same here. If we want IoT Core to be able to write to IoT Analytics, we need to have a specific role. Here, we could create another action if we want to. I'm not going to do that, and we can create the rule. Now, we have a rule that will say any message that comes from, so on the topic named Sigfox, will get into a specific channel into the IoT Analytics service. So if we go back to the schema here, that means we're able to route here to our channel. What we want to do now is make sure that we do some activities on the pipeline, because the message itself arrives with the data raw. So we want to decode the data. We will go into the IoT Analytics service. So you can look for the IoT Analytics service into all of the panel, or you can use it in your history here. I've put some easy links on the top of my screen here. Okay, so as we said, we've already created automatically a channel. This channel will send the message to the pipeline, and within our pipeline, we're going to create an activity. So the first thing it's going to do is it's going to have a look within our pipeline to see if there are already messaging arriving, and if there are messages arriving, it's going to infer the schema of the document from messages that arrive. Since the device we're using right now is not sending a lot of messages, I'm going to upload a previous JSON document so that we don't have to wait for a message to arrive. So we've defined that in the callback, we've defined the JSON format. So it looks like this. We have a device with an ID. We have a UTC time here, the fact that it's duplicate or not, and we have the data. So this is what the message looks like when it gets into the pipeline. So what we're going to do is we're going to add an activity. So in terms of activity, there are several activities that you can do on a message without having to create any compute resources. Things like removing an attribute from a message or adding an attribute from a message that's calculated from attributes within this message can be done automatically. Here we want to do decoding, which is a bit more complex. So we're going to use a Lambda function. I've already created a Lambda function for decoding the sent message. So what I can do is I can select my function. I'm going to recreate it here. Oh yeah, what's interesting, I've said it already, we need to have rights to from any resource to communicate to any other resource within AWS. That's also the case for any of the services. So here I've created the Lambda, but I haven't given the right for the IoT Analytics service to invoke the Lambda. So what I can do is I will go into the Lambda service, show you quickly. The Lambda is not that complex. Here I have a Lambda function. The Lambda function, if we send it a message that looks like what the IoT Analytics service is going to send it, it's going to be able to decode the message and send us same message, but with this time the temperature and a few information that was decoded from the data. But if we want the Lambda to be able to be, the Lambda to be able to be invoked by our IoT analytics service, we're going to have to add a specific permission. So this specific permission is added to something that we call the function policy. I'm going to use Cloud9 here to run a specific CLI command. You can do it from your directly from your desktop if you install the AWS CLI. Just a second. So what I need to do is here add the rights for the, let me just make sure that I've given the rights. Okay, so I've added here a statement within the function policy that allows the principal IoT analytics .amazonaws.com to invoke this function, which means now when I will get back here, sorry, I will get back into my pipeline and add my activity. Oh, actually, it has received messages from the device, so I don't need to import a new message. So that's one interesting thing. That means the device has sent a message to Sigfox. Sigfox has used the callback to send the message to IoT Core, which has routed the message into the IoT analytics channel, and it's now available in the pipeline so that I can use an actual read message. That's cool. So what I want to do is I want to use a Lambda function. So I will select my function here and I will update the preview. And now you can see that the message here was the raw message. And once you get through the Lambda function, we now have a temperature that's appeared, and we also have some information about the battery value that was decoded. Maybe for the sake of it, what we're going to do is we're going to add another activity. Sometimes it can be difficult for some data visualization tool to go get information that's within an attribute within the attribute. So we're going to get the object.value and we're going to set it as a direct attribute of the object. So let's do that here. Let's go and say battery value, and we're going to select here the object value, here update preview, and I can see that I can create a new attribute automatically without having to create a Lambda function for this one. Okay, let's save changes. Once I've edited my pipeline, what it's going to ask me is, do I want to reprocess my previous messages? Since I've changed something, it would be interesting maybe for me to go back and reprocess all the messages from before and store them into my data store. So let's start the reprocessing here. I'm going to give it a bit of time to process all of the data. So here, this is my data store, and once the data is processed, I will be able to run my data set and get some data into my data set. So here you can see also that you can create an SQL query that will allow you to limit the amount of data that you want to see within your data set. And you can also define your reoccurrence of the refreshing of your data sets. So here when I query it, I see that I have received one message, and that it has not been reprocessed yet because I do not have the temperature yet on this data set. So I will have to reprocess it once more. Okay, let's run it again. Okay, so what we've done up to now, let's go back to our little schema here, is so we have a device that sends a message. The message was then sent through the callback configured on the Sigfox side into the AWS IoT core. It was routed to a specific channel within IoT analytics, then sent to an IoT pipeline that invoked a Lambda, enriched the message, and sent it to our data store. Now we're querying it here to make sure that we have the latest version, and then we're going to be able to create data visualization within Amazon QuickSight. Okay. So let's go directly to Amazon QuickSight. So Amazon QuickSight is our data visualization tool. It will allow us to create easily data visualization of data sources that we can here configure very easily. So we want to use a new data set for this specific analysis. As you can see, Amazon QuickSight has a lot of pre-configured sources, so you can use S3, you can use Athena if you have already huge amounts of data that you want to explore, and you also have the ability to use AWS IoT analytics in a very easy way. Also, I've already given the rights for the QuickSight service to go and query the IoT analytics, so I don't need to do that here. Okay. So what I have now is the result of my query. So right now it's a very, very simple query. I only have one message, so it's not very interesting to create a lot of, let's say, useful data visualization. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to another account where I've generated a lot of data, so we can see a bit more what it would look like with a bit more data. 1 second. So here, what I've done here is I've done exactly the same thing. So I have data that actually looks a lot like what we've done now. I have a temperature, I have exactly the same thing. So it's the same structure of data. I've just generated a lot of devices sending this data. And where it's coming back. So what's interesting within QuickSight is I'm able to create data visualizations that make sense for my data. Here, I'm looking at the average temperature and at the trend for the average temperature. I can create new widgets, new visuals here without a problem. So I can select information, for instance, on my device, which will give me basically the record count. But I could also have a look at the temperature. So the summer temperature is not something that's very interesting, to be honest. So let's say an average temperature per device. That's exactly where we can see that I've generated the data because they all say exactly 19 degrees, which makes absolutely no sense. And within this, I'm able to drill down and do an analysis specifically on one of the devices about something that's interesting to me. What I can do also is I can publish my dashboard so that it can be used within an application or with a set of users. Okay, so just to give you a bit more what we've done here over the last 29 minutes is we've made sure that we get our messages from the devices themselves that go all the way through the Sigfox infrastructure into AWS in a secure way. So we made sure that the authentication and the authorization is minimal so that it gets into IoT Core without creating any security issue. And then with routing the messages to a specific analytics pipeline, we've enriched the messages and decoded the messages, and then we've visualized the messages in simple to create charts, and we've been able to publish that to end users so that they can do their own analysis. What's tremendously important here is that I've created this live with the exception of the Lambda function, and there is absolutely no specific server for you to have to provision for this infrastructure. So it's an entirely serverless infrastructure. So you don't have to plan for your specific load increases, and you don't have to pay when you don't have messages coming in. Okay.
Thank you, Jean. Are you
So
over?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to show you.
Yeah, cool. So I think we already have a couple of questions. So once again, if you have any questions, to in the appropriate channel, and we'll read them in the end. I'll start reading this question. So first is the alert. So how can I trigger an alert if the temperature is below a specific number?
Okay, how can you trigger an alert if a temperature is below a specific number? So you have several ways to do that. You can, so what you can do in the end, so we can do that. We could, so what we could do as a basic thing is we could either do a Lambda function that then sends the alert. Once we do the decoding, we can have add another activity that will check if it's a specific threshold for a specific call. I mean by that, you want to get an alert when the temperature has reached a specific threshold within for a specific device. Then that's something you can check with the Lambda function. So once you've decoded your message here, okay. We can add another activity, which could be a transformation as a Lambda function, or we could do it also as a query, so we can batch it. So in terms of data sets, when we get to IoT analytics here, we could do a specific query for all of your messages that have triggered your specific threshold over a specific period of time. What could be interesting is we could create rules that then feed back the messages into IoT Core if we want to, so that we can trigger other treatment. I'm not being very clear here. Sorry about that. So basically, either you set a threshold and then you repost your message to a specific topic where you say, okay, this is a message out of the normal bounds, and then you create a pipeline for treating these messages and managing your alerts, or you can do it directly within an.
Okay, great, thank you. We have another question this time about downlink. So how can you easily set up a downlink on your AWS account to a Sigfox device? Is it easy to set on the AWS?
Okay, this integration will only give you uplink. So this is here. If you write to the topics, you will not be able to reach your messages. You would have to create something a bit more specific. Right now, it requires that for you to call the Sigfox API.
Yeah, in the beginning, you will have to also set up a specific callback, directional callback to allow downlink, and I think set up specific on the side.
Yeah. But
someone release content to be able to follow tutorial step by step afterwards, and if yes, where can we find it?
Okay, there are. I think we will send that after that. There's a specific blog post. Okay. Let me show it here, but there are specific blog posts that you can follow through with all the steps. Okay. So here, there's a specific blog post that helps you here. Go to so this one. Let me someone. So you have here the link if you want to capture it. So this is a step-by-step follow through that you can follow through to get into IoT. So I think it goes to DynamoDB actually, but the changes to get to IoT analytics are not very difficult. As you've seen,
so we'll share the link.
We'll share the link. And
cool, thank you.
There's a lot of documentation on both sides, so feel free to browse through. And if you have any problem, you can reach out to Sigfox or AWS, and we'll be happy to help you.
Yeah, definitely. One last question before we end up the session. What is the pricing plan? Would I have to choose services if I've got approximately 1 devices and sending messages every hour? Okay. Are there a specific IoT pricing plan?
Okay, so the services I've shown you here are priced based on the connection time, number of messages, and amount of data going through. So it's pretty straightforward. Let me just open. There are no specific plans for the AWS IoT services themselves. There is one for QuickSight. So you have two choices for QuickSight. Either you want to go with the enterprise with all the features, with a single sign-on and all of that, or you can go with a bit more simple plan. But the rest is serverless and pay as you go. So that's pretty straightforward, and we can send you the pricing plans. They're all available on the AWS website.
Okay, that's good. Very last question: how is it possible to export this data, or is it possible as a CSV file?
Yes. Let me show you. So once you have your data set here, you can absolutely export it. It's not a problem. In query, you can export it. You can do whatever you want.
Okay, transform the dataset.
It's the same from your data into QuickSight. If you want to export it, you can export it. It's okay to export things as CSV files, but it might get big.
Okay, thank you, Jean. So thank you again for your session today. We have a lot of resolution from our ecosystem, both ecosystem actually. I think it was an interesting topic to cover. If we have the chance to more to build more, maybe we will have the opportunity to, because we have a lot of questions about that. For those who are asking questions, has been, so we'll upload everything on YouTube afterwards, so you can stream the session, and we'll send you a follow-up email, all the links, so you can think so about posts if you want to follow tutorial step about different programs, Activate and Sigfox. So thank you for having for the webinar. One will be about to master things. So for people, a project and they are just close to the industrialization, you will be the good tips. Twisco partner based in. Thank you, Jean, and
Thank you,
we'll see you next. Have a good day, everyone.